Hi everyone, and welcome back to our crafting series episode 2. In this episode we're going to go ahead and start work on our inventory component that will be placed onto our character, and in there we can store all the inventory that the player has. So for this I'm going to right click in my content browser, or you can go to add new, and we're going to go into creating a new blueprint class, and it's going to be an actor component. Actor components are components that you can place on top of actors. So they're very useful for adding things that you could sort of silo off and work together on. Inventory component, we call it. Okay, and go into here. Okay, so our inventory component is going to be quite simple, and it's going to be worked slightly differently from our other inventory system series. So the main difference with this is that we can use a map to create our inventory. Now I'm going to go into my variables list and go new variable, and we'll call this one inventory. And the variable type for this is going to be an item parent, but it's going to be a class reference, not an object reference. An object reference is if you're referring to a particular spawned instance of that object, whereas a class reference is you're referencing the class, like the source file itself. Now this can be a map, so if I click on the little ball icon to the right of this, down the bottom you have map. Choose this, and you should get by default, but if not, make the second one an integer. Now a map basically has two things. It has a key, which is the item parent in this case, and a value, which is the integer. As we add items to our inventory, we add the item parent and then we increase the integer. The integer is how many of that item we have on that person. So I can click compile, and to show you how this works, on default values I can add into this none. You can see green leaf, I can choose that and give it how many green leaves I have, so 5 for example. But we can close that for now and compile. So that's our inventory variable. That's the main thing that's doing all the work and storing all the data. Next we're going to make a couple of functions for later use. In the functions I'm going to create a new function, and we're going to go to add to inventory. We need another one saying query inventory, and another one saying remove from inventory. So add, query, and remove. So let's start with add to inventory. Now we're going to add one input to our add to inventory. Actually going to add two to input. So the input we can add to this is the item we want to add. So go item to be added, and this is going to be a class reference for the item parent. We're also going to need the quantity we want to add to this as well. So go quantity, and that will be an integer. Hit compile. Next we want to go to outputs, and we're just going to do a success boolean, so that we can output whether or not the function was successful in its task. Compile. Now to add an item to the inventory variable, we need to do a few things. First of all, you should note with a map you can't add duplicate keys. So if I want to add another value, so for example if I come from here and go add, if I do this it will actually replace and overwrite whatever's currently in that key. Okay, which is not what we want, because we want to add on to what the current existing key is there. So we need to do something before we add to our inventory variable. So before we do that, we need to, the item to be added can be just dragged in, that's fine. But next we want to do is check what item to be added to see if it actually exists already in our inventory. And if it is, find its current value and then add it onto the new quantity. So I'm going to drag out my inventory variable again, choose get, and we're going to go find, and we're going to choose the class we want to find, like so. This outputs the value and a boolean whether or not we found it. Now we don't have to worry about putting the boolean in, because the add here, if it doesn't already exist, it'll just add it to the map. If it does exist, it'll overwrite it, which is what we're kind of doing already, because we're adding the two quantities together. So you want to take this value and the quantity value and add them together. So do add integer plus integer and plug that to the find. This will now feed into the add there, which we can plug into the start of our function. So to recap, make sure you understand what's going on here. When we do the add to inventory function, we are feeding in the item we want to be added as a class and its quantity, how many we want to send in. We're going to check out inventory and find if we already have that item in our inventory. If we do, we're going to take the value and add that value to it. If we don't, it's going to output 0 and therefore get us nothing. So quantity will just feed straight into the add here. After we've done the add, we're going to again plug that in to our return node and tick success. And hit compile. You may want to actually clamp your value so you don't go any further than a certain number. So for example, I might want to clamp this to 99. So let's do that before we crack on. We're going to come out of this number here and go clamp. And the minimum value is 0, maximum value is going to be 99. And then we can plug that in like so. Just tidy up a little bit. So now that number won't get any higher than 99. It's going to pull it back down and clamp it within that range. And that's it for add to inventory. Next, we're going to query inventory. Now the query inventory, you're going to take in two inputs. You're going to take in the item, and that's going to be, again, item parent, and a class reference. We're also going to take in a quantity, and that's going to be integer. We're also going to output. So we're going to output the quantity, because it might be useful to know how much we are outputting. Output quantity. I spelled it wrong here. Quantity. And also whether it was successful in finding that there. Okay. Now we already know how to find an item. We've done it in add to inventory. So we're going to do a bit of that. So we're going to drag in our inventory map out and do find. And we're going to plug that into the item there. Now this just reports back whether or not we found an item, regardless of the value. Value 0, that doesn't matter. We want to check the quantity as well. So with the quantity there, we want to drag that out and check whether or not quantity is greater than or equal to the value that's in there. If that is true, and this is true, the output can be successful. So we're going to put a branch in, and the conditions can be an AND boolean. And we're going to connect these two booleans together to combine them into an AND. So they both have to be true in order the branch to report out true. If it is true, we're going to drag that out. And I'm just going to drag in the quantity value here. Not that quantity, sorry. Well, I'm going to output this quantity. Just drag that out there and tick success. I'm going to also copy and paste that return node in, put into false, and untick the success, with output quantity being this value again, because we may not have enough of this item we need. So we now output the quantity there. I'm going to hit compile, and we are done with our query inventory. So the last function is the remove from inventory function. For this we need two inputs, similarly as before. So this one's going to be called item to be removed. And that's going to be an item parent, class reference. And the second input is going to be the quantity we're going to be removing. And that's going to be an integer. Then the remove is going to use our query inventory function. So let's drag our query inventory function out and call that. And that's going to call the item there and the quantity there. This is going to output how much quantity we actually have in our inventory, and whether or not we're successful in actually having the item. So the success, first of all, is going to go into a branch. We're then going to take the output quantity here minus the quantity that we want to take away from this removal here. So I can call in that quantity variable, That's that parameter there. So this new value is how much we have left. Okay. So then I'll just drag my map out from get inventory. Go add. And we're going to add the class item to be removed. And we're going to overwrite it with this new value which we've calculated. And I'll put that up into true there. Like so. We're going to add an output to our remove from inventory. So I'm going to new output. And it's going to be a success. And that'll be a boolean. This one is going to go into false and leave it as false in the success box. And then I'm going to copy and paste that at the end here and set that to true. So I remove from inventory. It's going to first of all query our inventory, and if it finds that the item has the correct amount or more than the correct amount, we're going to take that amount and take away the quantity we need to take away, and then add it, which is going to override the current item that's in there with this new value. This will return successful. If the query returned false, then our branch here will go down the false route and return false. And these are all the functions we need to get started in our inventory component. Last thing I need to do is just add this component to my player character. So let's find my player character. Go add component, inventory component. And that will now appear at the bottom of your component list for your player character. And that'll do it for this episode. If you want to watch the next episode, you can head over to patreon.com/RyanAiley, where a donation of just $1 will get access to that video, plus many others. Thank you to all my supporters both on there and on YouTube for your continued support. If you have yet to do so, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.